Thank you, Mary, and the college, Rowan University, for giving me the opportunity to show my work in this amazing space. And I should give you some background on what this work is about. Mary did mention that I have been interested in working and researching the history of African Americans on the land in this country outside of our preconceived notions of African Americans' relationship to the land is only through slavery, which is absolutely not the case. Um, in terms of African Americans on the land, there is a legacy that goes back to when we were first brought here, obviously, to teach um, white farmers how to grow rice, how to grow um, indigo, how to grow cotton, all of these things. So there's an established relationship and knowledge base that's already there. Somehow or other, the perception that African Americans have not been on the land is a misconception. So in my research, I was really interested in how and who was still on the land after all of the issues that confronted black farmers throughout the past hundred or so years. In terms of government funded or government backed efforts to keep black people off the land. And as it turns out, it's still continuing. I don't know if any of you are aware of the lawsuit that's going through by white farmers to keep the debts that have been accrued by black farmers unjustly. So that's an ongoing thing. We have a lawsuit currently trying to get black people off of their land. So it's kind of astonishing. But anyway, my research included traveling through the South about 10 years ago now, because I've been doing this work for about 10 years, and visiting farmers and getting their stories. And I was really, really interested in farmers who've been on the land for multiple generations, because I think of those folks who are still on their land as these legacy farmers, men and women who have withstood all of the pressures. And so I think of them as heroes and heroines whose names we don't know. And so my project has been to remove some of that anonymity, all of that anonymity, to get people to realize that there has been these folks on the land passing it down, withstanding all of the issues of Jim Crow and peonage and all of these things that are designed to remove you from the land, and still there producing. I'm amazed by this young man. He's a hero to me. Kyle is a hero to me. He's on the land. And so I am making work about those anonymous people, giving them names. So when you walk through the gallery and you look at the list, you'll see that I am naming names of these farmers. And so this is the work that is representative of that research. It looks at individual farms. The objects that you see are things that I have observed on these farms. I spent time, as I said, driving through the South, taking photographs, doing interviews, making videos, just collecting as much information as I could so that I could come back to my studio and start producing objects. So what you're seeing here are a latest series of what I'm calling farm bowls, but preceding them were freestanding sculptures, and preceding them were wall-mounted sculptures. So this has been an ongoing project to find ways of getting this story out in concrete objects. What was interesting to me was that I found that there was very little actual visual art by African American artists, people of color, about this history. And it's because it was something that was seen as something to be left behind. We did not want to be identified with this history. And so you don't see artists from the Harlem Renaissance or from contemporary art today, people celebrating this part of our history, this amazing part of our history. So making art about that is where I feel I can fill in a gap and get a conversation going. And hopefully other artists can pick up that, that thread and keep making art about the people who are the foundation of the American economy. Without black people on the land, there is no American economy that turned us into, as we like to call ourselves, the most powerful country on the planet, without these black farmers working for free. So here we are. So I'm just trying to get that conversation open, people's names being named, the heroes and heroines being identified, making work that is going to be shown in museums and internationally as well as nationally. And that's what I feel lucky that is occurring right now. So the work is getting out there, the names are being named. And so I feel really proud and lucky to have that opportunity. So hopefully you'll get a chance to look at the work. And thank you.
Sure. Is this on? Oh, okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. I had the longest trip, so I feel better about being the last one. I work out of Atlantic County. Our gardens, we have we do so many projects, it would take me an hour and a half to even explain. So I'll focus on the garden portion. You didn't mention that Kyle is also a board member on Crop, so we work together very closely. The CSA that was spoken about in the introduction, we worked together. We had another black female farmer who actually bailed at the last minute. So I very quickly became an urban farmer for real, because we had 40 customers that needed vegetables every week. And they wanted to taste a piece of what we had in Atlantic City. So Kyle was able to supplement, but the excitement that people have, and they're like, wait, Atlantic City, you can grow vegetables there? Like, that's really what people say to me. Like, I'll even pull vegetables out of the ground, and people walking by will say, wait, did that just grow here? And I'm like, yeah, right here. It's like amazing. So where my work picks up, like I was so inspired by reading your story and the research that you did. And what Crops, my organization, is all about is the power of change with just seeds. I mean, it's like the perfect metaphor. I was also an English teacher for years. I was not born a farmer at all. I'm from Long Island. I was afraid of bugs. I was like, my mother still thinks it's hysterical that I do what I do. But how did I come to this? It was really through social activism. I did Teach for America. I've taught in Baltimore City, Brooklyn, Newark. And what kept coming back to me was the fact that my students were struggling, not because they lacked any intelligence, but they lacked access. And they also lacked healthy food. And when you don't have like any education people in here, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you cannot learn higher level thinking skills if your basic needs are not met. So that was part of it, and then also just seeing what young people are eating in cities in particular. I mean, all across America, but it's like you go into the bodega on the corner, is literally chips, like hot Cheetos, like flying out of there, like, hotcakes, right? So now what our gardens do is people walking by, I do a lot of social engagement literally on the street. Like, people walk by and say, hey, you want to try something? You want to pull a carrot out? And that little bits of like planting seeds in people's minds, they keep coming back. And, I've never met a kid that doesn't try a vegetable from the garden. They are more excited. I know you're going to talk about this as well. Children, but not just children. So quick story, and the history of African Americans on land, it still exists in Atlantic City. So there's one day, we have open, our gardens we have 4 different garden locations. There are no fences, open to the public. People can come anytime they want. So we have community days and people coming by. So this man is going to cut the collard greens. And the collard greens, if you know anything about African American history, very deep history, very rooted in this. You cannot try to tell someone who is black that maybe there's another green that you might like better. Forget about it. Don't have that conversation. So anyway, we're about to cut the greens. And the thing about collard greens is you can cut them and then they come again, a second time. So I'm trying to explain this to this man who's like 75 years old, and he looks at me like that. He goes, I know you're not trying to teach me how to cut no collard greens, okay? And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to insult you. I was just, I just want to make sure they come back again because I really like them and I want to grow them. And it's an urban garden. We need space. So he taught me that the first cutting they usually fed to the hogs because the second one tasted better. So I'm not in Atlantic City to teach people. I'm also there to learn. And that's a big part of it. So the other part of crops is, of course, food access. We bring vegetables to Atlantic City. We bring, Kyle brings a lot of education as well. During our CSA, we went in the kitchen at the Tennessee Avenue Beer Hall, and, he taught people how to break down a chicken on Instagram. And I was like, Kyle, I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but we'll try and see if we get banned. But that's what it's all about. And at Crops, we are not, all the ideas don't come from me, I'm the founder. Anybody can come to us with an idea, and we try to take those seeds and grow with them. So we've really seen it spread. So I'm really passionate, I'm excited to be here, and also, this work is so important, so thank you.
How's everybody doing? All right, so I'm just Kyle Smith, a small farmer. I feel, I'm very happy I can be up here in the panel with these people, the peers in front of me that have done a lot more work than I have. But a couple key things that I want to talk about from earlier, the migration of black people. Growing up as a child, when I was young, you always had that trip down south. We always went down south, this person's house, that person's house. It was a big thing down south. Hogs, chickens. I was all down south, nothing up north here. We came back here to the city, and you went to the grocery store, corner store. That's where you got your food. That's where you bought everything. But growing up as a kid, my mom, she worked in the school district. So in the summertime, I spent the whole summer with my grandfather in the back of a truck, going to Violin, Buna, Newfield, all out there, going to the farms, getting my hands dirty, and getting to make contact with the soil and the people that actually did the farming. We went and got fresh vegetables from the farm, picked that morning, that day, and we did was take them to Atlantic City. We went to the senior citizen high rise. That was our main stops in Atlantic City. Because people there, they couldn't get the good food, fresh food, because in the inner city like that, it's a food desert. I don't think they had the word back then when I was a kid, when I was 15, 11, but it was a food desert. If they had to go maybe 4 or 5 blocks with a walker, that's a little far. To carry 5, 6 bags, a couple blocks, it's not going to happen. So your other option is what? Go to the corner store, quick meal, lasts you 2-3 days. So seeing that and coming from that kind of childhood and raised up to what I do now is pretty much total opposite. So I try to educate people on my farming thoughts is, put a whole cow in your freezer. Simple as that, You're good for 6-7 months now, When it came to the whole coronavirus thing and whatever's happening at the grocery store, I don't know, because all I go there for salt and pepper, So if you can have that kind of mindset, you can get out of being tied in, not being able to get nutrition, being able to talk to your farmer and get the medicine you need. Hey, my doctor said this. Okay, cool. Well, if you take some of this or, hey, why don't I grow some turmeric for you? Hey, let's put some ginger in. Hey, your cholesterol's high? Maybe you need to get a half a pig. You know why? Well, half a pig is only, 6 bacons. So that's 6 bacons for the whole year. Comparative to the grocery store, which is going to give you a bacon every time you walk in. So if you say, hey, I got to eat a little better, well, that half pig, that cow, it's going to make you eat better because you're limited on your choices other than saying, you know what, eat one other T-bone. Well, there's only so many T-bones. There's only so many pieces of bacon. There's only so much that you can eat when you have one whole animal. When you have a 200 row of collard greens, beans, you got to put that stuff away. So it changes your diet and with the way you view food or eat food and consume it compared to what the grocery store has that's believing in our head right now. So that's my biggest thing is, trying to give back education. I drop off boxes to people's houses all the time. They call me back when I leave. They're like, so that squash, what do we do with the squash? I'm like, olive oil, salt, put on the grill, just eat it, So how do I cook these pork chops? So it's the education piece of that too that I feel a lot of families lack. And it's just, everybody's got a doctor, everybody should have a farmer, just to have that piece of it, So, it's as simple as that. When somebody says, hey, how do you do this? Well, your farmer's probably cooked it and messed it up a dozen times, So when he gets to you, he can tell you exactly how to do it. What do I do with crowder peas? What do I do with this? Now, hey, take that, put in the crock pot, come back, it's pretty much said and done. So that's your doctor, your chef, everything all in one. So, but getting people back to the farm, getting people's hands back in the dirt, getting that dirt underneath the nails, that's the meditation and the rehabilitation that I think people need and communities need to get nutrition back into their life and get, out there and get stress and stretch, and, picking up a box of tomatoes and moving hogs around ain't easy. But, comparative to, other things, it's pretty good. So I enjoy it. It sucks, but I enjoy it. So.
I don't know why she put the person who speaks for a long time as last. I need a limit. So my name is Sonia. My name is Sonia Harris. I am from South Jersey. I'm originally from Paulsboro. I am an educator. I'm a special educator, retired. I retired early, October 2019. I made it out right before. But in 2015, I taught over here at Bullock Elementary, right on New Street, right across from New Street Park. And, I was raised with a family who is rooted here in South Jersey. My mom is from Williamstown. And she grew up, like, they had animals, and my mom's not a big meat eater because they had to take care of their food like that. And, growing up in Paulsboro in this little yard, she was growing collard greens and mint and had a sassafras tree. So if me and my siblings were sick, she would go out there and slice a piece off of that bark, steep it, and that's what we had. And then, me and my siblings could not get further away from that until I came along, till now. I'm the middle child, so I'm the typical middle child. So when I was teaching over here, and, I was that teacher that was like, we're going to go play outside. You want to play in this? No, I don't want to get dirty today. And I could associate with my kids that didn't want to get dirty. I was like, okay, that's wonderful. But as a teacher, and especially as a special educator, I connect with kids who don't get it. So if you need that outside of the box teacher, I am way outside of the box. I might put a toe in, and then I'm way out here. So we had this math lesson one day it was just stupid. I have to use that word. It was dumb. So we're teaching first graders, and we have first graders we have a combined class, general ed, special ed, and really every child needs to have a special educator in their life, someone who's outside of the box. And we're doing this lesson, and I looked at my co-teacher, and I said, there's no connection to this. It's a spiraled curriculum. We're introducing measurement. The kids are running around the room trying to measure a leg, an arm, a book. We didn't come back to that, though. And I went, well, we should do something so the kids come back to it. So when they get this lesson again in third grade is when you saw measurement again, that you had some connection. We should grow stuff. We should have a garden. So that afternoon, met with my principal. He was like, take it, run with it. I did not garden. I said we were the furthest away from that we could be. I was not putting my hands in anyone's dirt. At that time, I had bought a house down in Woolwich. And if you know anything about Woolwich Township, that was all farmland. So I have a house that was originally on farmland. My very first week there, I took my little trowel outside. I was going to plant some begonias. A wolf spider came out of the ground. Done. I left everything right there. My son got off the bus at like 3:10, and I said, hey, bud, I need you to get that stuff, that garden stuff. I'm done. So I had a landscaper. I did not go outside. So when I took it to my principal and he said run with it, we did. And I contacted this guy who had been on DIY, and he contacted me back, and I'm really trying to make a long story super short. He spoke to me, and he learned really quick I knew nothing about gardening, because he said, what do you want to grow? And I said, tomatoes. He said, why? I said, because we're from Jersey. That's what we do, tomatoes and white corn. He said, that's not what Jersey does. Jersey does blueberries and cranberries. And I went, you're not from here. We do tomatoes and white corn. So over 2 hours, he's giving me information. He also asked what kind of flower, and I said tulips, and he said, why? I said, because they're my favorite. And he was like, yeah, you've got a lot to learn. And he sent me on this journey that took about a year and a half. And I learned about all things gardening and the benefits gardening had with children, especially children who learned different, who didn't play school. So we get this garden done, and you can still, to this day, go, still there at Bullock School. We're about to revive it for this spring. And the day after it was built, we all sat there, and I looked at one of my teacher friends and said, what do we do now? I don't know how to do any of this. So I had to learn really quick because it was important to the kids. But during this time, I started really noticing what my kids were bringing to school. And if you know anything about where Dorothy Bullock Elementary is, it is a school that is bordered by low-income housing with 2 bodegas. Each one has a little bodega in the front. And this is Glassboro. It's Rowan. Jimmy John's. How many cheesesteak places do we need here? Cheesesteaks, pizza. My kids were coming to school with a little Huggy drink and a bag of chips because that's all their parents could afford. I personally paid lunch bills for kids who owed $1.80 and who were told they couldn't eat. So I started looking at that and going, okay, we have to do things different. So the garden has to be an edible garden. Found out that in New Jersey, if you grow it at school, your school cafeteria can cook it and feed it to the kids. How many schools are doing that? Public? Princeton Day, if you want to go there. But how many of our kids can afford something like Princeton Day or Mullica Hill Friends? You know, so it really became important to leave that space open. I had people tell me, fence it, and I said, nope. They're going to mess it up, you know that. And I went, all right, it's just plants. Plants are resilient. We had one in the time it started in 2015 to today, one incident. A little kid, him and his friends over the weekend went and got some tomatoes and threw them at the windows. Let me tell you about those kids. Those kids rallied, found out who did it, reported them to the school resource officer at Bow School, and then the guy came to me and said, how do you want me to handle it? And I went, I don't know, it's just tomatoes, it's all right. He went and talked to that mom. Those kids did their own justice, and to this day, those kids, in the summertime, kids will watch that garden. So now there's gardens at Bow, there's a garden at Intermediate, and we're going to be working on the high school and Rogers Garden this year. And the key is that all gardens need to be accessible to the people, because food insecurity doesn't look like it did in 2018 when 40,000 families were facing food insecurity. It's way over that. Food insecurity has a new face, middle class and upper middle class families. So at least in this state, we're the garden state. Why are we not doing gardening? Why is California and Colorado beating us? We're the garden state. Every single public space should have an accessible food garden because you don't know what someone's story is. So we need to make sure food is available. Food is a right. Every single child has a right to it, especially children who look like me, who our ancestors were bloodied to make money for someone else. We have to reclaim that. I teach my kids about growing cotton and watermelon and rice and cassava and all the things that were brought over from Africa. We have kids who are of Mexican descent who are told, no, you don't work in the field. And I'm like, no, you get out here and garden because you need to learn how to take this operation over and how to rematriate seeds and claim them. And that's something I also do. We help rematriate seeds. So I have a lot of projects that we do. I know these wonderful people here, and I'm just thankful. I'm thankful to do this work, and if you want to learn more, I mean, you've got 4 people right in front of you who can really help along that journey. So I'm going to step back and give this.
I'm in Williamstown, New Jersey, kind of close to Mr. Bill's and the new Wild One of Blackhurst Pike, back in the backwoods. I bought the house probably about 7 years ago and got lucky with enough actually having another black farmer right across the street from me. And actually, the house I moved into was an older black farmer that had a pig farm next door. So, but we raised about 1,000 meat birds every year, about 300 layers. We probably do about 5 hogs a month, and got cattle too. So then we do tomatoes and all that stuff, and peppers. Yeah, so it's kind of hard because, everybody wants chicken because now the chicken's not on the shelf at the store for some reason. I don't know. But, yeah, so people keep coming by all the time. But it's more of, especially working like, a small-scale farm like myself, it's more CSA style and pre-planned. So if you come to me and say, hey, like I said, I'm going to need myself, I put 250 birds away from me and my family every year. Okay, we eat those from, end of summer all till we do chickens again. So the same thing with somebody else, another family, There's 12 months in a year. 1 week out the month, you want to have a nice chicken dinner. You say, hey, I need 15 birds, You know, you get in the middle of summertime when we have those birds. Because the big houses, they grow inside, they have heat bills, they have, 20,000 birds in the one house, So you go to any farm, like big farm like that, and you're like, hey, how many birds do you have? Oh, I got 75,000 birds out there. I'm 1,000 birds a year. So you say, hey, I want 25 birds just for the year. You put those in the freezer, put them away, you're good for the year. So that's that pre-planning I was talking about before that, after the whole pandemic and everything, everybody should really see, if you pre-plan and say, hey, I need 25 birds, you're pre-planning, you're good to go for that year. So that's how we do most of our marketing. A lot of stuff goes to Philadelphia too. So, so I'll tell you the story because we got the time. So I was working went to Votech for auto body. I got a job down at Kendall Ford. I don't remember most of my supervisors that I've ever had at any job, but I remember one guy named Al Giuliano. He fired me for no reason at all, right? So I got fired. The biggest thing in my head was, how can I support myself? What do I need? I need water, food, and a shelter over my head. As long as I have that, I'm pretty good. Water, creeks, whatever. But food, how do I do that? Long story short, I ended up getting 25 birds in the mail. Started with that. We just ran from there. The cheapest thing they had that I could afford was the meat birds, like a little $25 pack, or, hit the button, send it to the house, it come right in the mail, and we started right there. That's how it started. So, from something that's, you're talking chickens, like I said, come in the mail, and you got a good 8 weeks with them, and then you kill them. That's it. So it's a quick turnaround and something that you can repeat and do, and, the first time something like, you're like, I'm not eating that. That's chicken from the backyard, not from the store. It's kind of weird. But you get used to it, and it's something that, we've just been disconnected from as people, just, not to beat on a grocery store, but we just been disconnected from actually having that visual of a live animal to, having that visual of, sweat and hard work of putting in 1,000 tomato plants to actually going out there and having to pick them and taking them home and making spaghetti sauce,
I just want to comment that I've been a vegetarian. I eat fish now the past couple of years, but I was a vegetarian since I was 14, since I learned, the reality of it. So it's interesting because, if you told me years ago that I would start a nonprofit and I would work with a meat farmer, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. There's no way. But what I've realized is that when you're talking about sustainability and some of the issues that we face with food insecurity, the reality is, yeah, my personal views, I don't eat meat, but that I can't impose that on anyone else. So I believe in facilitating people to live a more connected to the land life in whatever way that looks like for them. So yeah, so it makes total sense to me, like, why we partner together. But then, like, we got invited to the vegan festival, and I was like, you may want to do some research first. I don't know if, like our farmers markets, like, we want to bring to people fresh options. I can't impose my personal views on the mission of the organization. That's not what we're here for. So the fact that people in Atlantic City were able to have access to birds that Kyle raised, I mean, there's a spiritual connection there back to the land, and that's been missing for a really long time.
Here in Glassboro, you cannot have chickens. You can't have a coop. In your backyard, you have to have, so much clearance between whatever's in your backyard and what's in someone else's backyard. And trust me, I'm working on that. So yeah, we work all over the globe, and I am shocked anytime that I'm working with everyone who is not in the US, and how open everyone else is to growing food, every other government. And then in the US, and they listen when I say, wait a minute, you're allowed to do that? What do you mean we're allowed? Yes, this is what they promote. We get tax breaks for this. And I'm always shocked. So yes, everywhere in the US that we have worked, we've run up against some kind of obstacle.
Yeah. So I can speak to that. I mean, money would be the number one problem. Like the fact that people ask all the time, well, where's Crops, business located? And I'm like, see my mom van over there? That's where we transport vegetables. Right there with my 4 kids in the car, like literally. There's soil all over the backseat of my car all the time. And it's so frustrating because people know the community food bank, right? How many of you have donated to the community food bank? Okay. there's no representatives here, right? So I work with the food bank. Do you know how much produce is wasted? It's out of control. My friend and I drove you past the garden last night. Literally a mound of cabbage, like as far as the eye could see, in our compost pile. So the food bank even recognizes that they have a hard time getting the food from where it's donated from to the people in time because of shelf life. And we know that the vegetables, the longer it sits, the less nutritional content it has. So what you're getting, even people who are getting donations of produce from the food bank, it's already sat on shelves. It's usually the stuff that's already expired, things that people don't want. I mean, I'm constantly giving out food. I gave away last Friday, we got a shipment of 160 pounds of beets that were marked in 10-pound bags of russet, it said russet potatoes. And I'm like, those aren't russet potatoes, those are beets. They're like, how do you know? I'm like, because I grow beets and I know what they look like. You try giving away in Atlantic City 10-pound bag of beets. Like, even if you like beets, what are you doing with that? So there's so many issues in the food system, but then when we applied for a grant from the food bank, we take the food from them, redistribute it, and we got waitlisted, and 15 other organizations got funded. It's absolutely insane. And then they're like, wow, you do amazing things. They're always calling me up. Can you take these boxes of produce? Sure. But could you approve our grant application? Because every time we stop to write a grant, it takes 3 months out of our life. It's just absolutely so frustrating. And then city ordinances, we deal with it with farmers markets. We have to pay we're helping bring healthy food. Our farmers markets accept SNAP benefits, which most farmers markets do not. We now are getting certified to accept WIC and senior vouchers, which is really exciting. And the city still wants $1,500 for a mercantile license from us. Seriously? But the AC Beer Fest, they can come in and pay that no problem, and they make tons and tons of monies off their sponsors. So it's very frustrating.
That's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just get into it.
Yeah, the money is.
The funding, the money.
Yeah.
That's a big obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
Loans,
Yeah.
not for us.
I'll hop in there on that one and talk about my biggest thing with the hurdle that I see in front of most farmers and black farmers is the education, just being able to know exactly what's going on. So my mom, I had those chickens I talked about at her house. I didn't have no land. I didn't have anything. But I was actually able to get an 88-acre farm right down the street for a chicken and a dozen eggs a week. So people say, well, how do you, it's all about education. Because the person that had that farm was an older lady, and she needed to keep the farm exemption on that land. So she needed me to be on that land with the chickens to keep that farm exemption. So that means, instead of her paying the, outrageous Jersey taxes of 68 or 80, whatever it is, she probably only paid $1,000 for her, 88 acres and her big house, the pool, all that, So that brought the taxes down just by having me there. So that's the education piece that, if I didn't have anybody mentoring me or telling me or me, being up against the wall, what do? I got 200 birds here. And reading the book and actually getting in there, you don't know, So I think that blocks a lot of us, and especially when it comes to black farmers in the inner city, even in the country, being able to have a mentor or somebody that can, I'm a first-generation farmer. I don't know anybody else that has hogs. I just don't. I don't know anybody else that raise cattle. It's hard to find those things and get past those barriers. And then when you have spend about $1,200 on feed, or a couple $100 on tomato plants, well, where's it go? You talk about the distribution issues with the, worldwide food stuff. She has a box of beets. What am I going to do with my beets? She got a bag of free ones. What am I going to do with mine? So you got to find those avenues and the people who care about the stuff that you grow and why you grow it. To market that stuff to them, people that care about good food and a story behind it, and get that stuff there. But that's the hardest thing that you can come up against, trying to get that stuff moved. If not, you end up with an animal sitting there, or like you said, a box of tomatoes just going to waste.
One of the things that seems apparent to me is that there is cultural bias when it comes to accepting how food gets to you and how you expect, your perceptions of where food comes from and who produces it. So I think that, if you're looking at this whole thing in terms of culture, that's what we're up against? Because apparently you have experience and you're exposed to internationally other issues around culture that are more accepting and realistic about food and food production. So in this country, we have a severe case of cultural bias against farming, even though we are completely dependent upon it. But it is masked, I think, behind this banner, this corporate bias. They produce the food. We as individuals, self-determining our own ways of receiving food, that is looked down upon. You can go through this whole litany of explanations about class and just, in terms of the economy, who's in charge of the food. It has been relieved, or at least it has been removed from the people who consume it. We are in a producer-consumer society. And so just structurally, we are not able to respond, or at least to take this on, because we have been culturally educated to believe that we do not, as people, make food for ourselves. So you're going to run up against all kinds of bureaucratic obstacles if you're taking that on. So I think we're in this special place right now. It's a very kind of liminal space where people are starting to wake up. There's this beginning awakening about the necessity to have some control over your consumption. And that these are knowledgeable people. And it's not the corporate boardroom who should be determining how and where and who's going to produce food. So I think it's definitely a cultural bias that is going to have to be worked through. And I think we're going to be up against it because of climate change. I mean, it's not going to be one of those things that we can passively sit back and hope somebody's going to handle this. It's going to come out of necessity. It's going to come out of survival. And those people who are going to be seen as the leaders, as the authorities about how to survive as the climate changes, it's going to be people on the land, because that's what we're contending with. It's land and water and atmosphere. All of these things that farmers are intimately engaged in with every day. So you're not going to be looking to some government Department of Agriculture person who's going to send out some data. No, I'm going to Kyle. I'm going to you. I'm going to you. Because these folks know how to grow and to make land productive that isn't productive. The people that I name in my work, those are going to be the people that we need to rely on and look to. And so right now we're in this place where it's kind of, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
In the supermarket, like the dairy section,
Right.
you look through and you see somebody
See
back
them back
there.
there?
But I think this is why, I used to be apologetic. At a panel like this, I'd say, well, I'm not a real farmer. But urban farming it's real farming. It absolutely is. I mean, our biggest garden is on an abandoned lot that's a closed down church. And the amount of food, 75 to 100 people a week in the summer coming through, being able to do a CSA, being able to put food on the tables. And I think also the piece that I want to add to what you were saying is the empowerment piece. It's not somebody else. And not just, if you don't need land, you have a patio, you have a fire escape. We gave away 200 container gardens at the beginning of the pandemic to empower people. You're stuck at home, grow at home. Grow your own food at home. You're afraid. I was literally afraid. How am I going to get my kale? If I can't go to the store and get kale. I was planting double. And what was interesting is next door to my house, I live in suburbia. Next door to my house is a McMansion, right? And they owned a company that sold tickets, right? It was basically like a legal version of ticket scalping, right? And his business went under. And he's freaking out. And he comes over and he was walking his dog, and during the pandemic from far away, he goes, well, Paige, we're going to end up having to come to your garden for vegetables. I was like, oh, now? But before, you didn't want them climbing up your fence and things like that. But now you want to stop by and go shopping? No, those aren't for you. Like, sorry. Now all of a sudden I have the power, McMansion, because you can't eat your walls. But you can eat what's in my garden, where they kept giving me cards when we moved in. Do you want to get a landscaper? We got good landscapers that can fix this. Meanwhile, I'm growing corn and strawberries on my front lawn, and they're freaking out because it doesn't look the way it's supposed to. That's right. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah, it's more of a comment. I'm really excited about the city gardens and bringing back agriculture into the city, and but also I got a young woman. I don't know if she's still doing it, but she had a CSA and she was gardening in suburbia on other people's lawns. Because the biggest thing is money to get land, and especially for African Americans, no way, no loans. And I just, myself, but I was just so excited with this idea of in suburbia, there's so many yards, of her using these to set up her own CSA.
Connect with those people. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people. I have an acre. We just got our USDA farm number.
Woo!
Holla, Paige. But it's so we can allow people. I tell people all the time, you don't have room? 503 Woodstown Road. Come on through. You just have to work your space. Like, I have enough to try and handle, but you can work your space. And I just have to add this to what Syd was saying. There's a reason why the United States is not allowed to send food to other countries. Just think about that. Think about the FDA. Why can't we send food to France? Why can't we send food to England and Germany? Well, they don't want our chemicals, because why is the FDA managing our food? But outside of that, yes, you can always contact someone who has some space, and there's a lot of us out there, a lot of us. Glassboro Community Garden, like I said, Bullock Children's Garden, you want to grow some food over there? Contact me, contact Paige, contact anyone. Yeah, what brought us together is the pandemic. So Paige and I got to know each other through this organization, really started by Nate Kleinman from Experimental Farm Network, this amazing, amazing human. And Nate brought thousands of people from around the globe together because seeds were deemed unessential. So because if you didn't have a credit card and couldn't prepay for your order when you drove up to Target to pick up your order, if you didn't have purchase with a credit card, not a debit card, a credit card, you couldn't get seeds in many places. Jersey, thank goodness, was one of the places that kept seeds as essential. So that's how we came together first. And we've only really been doing this through pandemic. So you've had schools open, schools closed. But when I work in schools, we're in 22 schools right now. And the majority of the schools Bullock Garden Project is in New Jersey, because we need it to keep it close. We don't know what's going on. We insist that parents participate. We teach parents and we give people products to help them grow. Being as part of the Glassboro Health Initiative, we give people, and we're about to put it online again, that we're here for free. We're a free resource. You need seeds? Yeah. You come to one of us. We're seed hubs.
Got like a suitcase full of seeds.
Oh,
I'm like
my
a seed
gosh.
pusher. I'm like, you want seeds? Come out to my car.
Oh my God, my son calls me Moonbeam because he's like, what? He came home and he's like, what is this? I don't have a kitchen. I have a indoor farm. So, you come to these people, there are resources out there, and we're here to help. So, but that's how we got together.
I want to mention one more program real quickly, because the infant mortality rate and the maternal morbidity rate in New Jersey is so high, particularly for women of color. And in Atlantic City, 17% of black babies born in Atlantic City die before the age of 1. So when we heard this statistic, I mean, really think about that. It hits hard. So CROP started a program, and I was like, we can't just sit back and do nothing. So we had, I think it was 59 moms participated in the program across New Jersey. It was done on Zoom. We sent out grow kits to the moms. You've seen them in my house. I have We sent them egg cartons, bag of soil, and microgreen seeds. And that's how it began. It's like start that way. Then the second phase of our program, they got pots and lettuce seeds. They grew lettuce. And then the third time, they sprouted beans in their fridge. But the thing that was powerful is, like, we know how hard it is and tiresome it is to show up for a Zoom class. These women showed up for 4 sessions of twice a week. So Tuesdays was life hacks. We taught all kinds of health, any kind of health, female cancers. We taught about meatless Mondays. We taught about all kinds of things, recipes for kids, how to get kids interested in food, books about vegetables. Then on Fridays, we did Mom's Social Hour. So we did yoga, we did meditation, we told jokes, we did guess what vegetable. And what we found out is an organization that gave us, literally the grant was $2,000 for all of this, 3 months worth of 2 times a week classes, plus the grow kits we sent out, okay? All of that. At the end, they tested the women in the beginning and at the end on health questions. We never saw the survey. Their knowledge increased 16%. So see how much we do with barely anything? It's like, imagine if we had a fully funded program. We could really, truly live up to our name, which is revolutionizing the open public spaces. That's the idea.
Oh man, I could talk all day, but yeah, it's just like what we've all been saying up here. It's just the change in mindset, getting back to culture, community, and traditions. It's people like this farming stuff, and they like fires because it's the most basic thing you get to. People love barbecue. Why? It's pretty much just burnt wood and cooking meat. It's the most basic, simplest things. So if us as a community focus on the basics, the small things, then the big things, they will come. The 17% will drop down. The kids that are hungry, that'll drop down. So everything will come together. As a community, everybody works together on the basics and small things.
For me, our newest philosophy that really brings everything together is this concept of haves and have-nots is wrong. It's not true. All of us have something to give, and all of us need something. And when we take away that charity away from food, that idea of people have and some people have not, we're all lacking in America. We're lacking access to healthy food. So if we could see it more as a communal project, then I think we get a lot further.
For me, it's carrying it forward. I mean, every individual in this room has now acquired some new insights about farmers, who's doing what, where things are, who's creating all of these different opportunities. So I just would urge everyone to pass it along. Don't keep this to yourself. Pass it along. I don't know if all this video is going to show up on YouTube or some place. Just my feeling is that it has to get the word out, and this whole idea of changing the culture starts one person at a time, and that you're not the weirdo if you're talking about learning how to farm, and maybe that lawn in front of your house that's soaking up all that sunlight is not the best idea you had. So I just think passing it along, being enlightened, educating yourself, and not being self-conscious about talking to other people about this issue. Because I don't see there being any more urgent an issue than about surviving on this planet, other than being able to farm and grow your own food and be self-determined in that area.
I promise I'll keep it short. Okay. We are each other's keeper. Plain and simple. One of my favorite books is A Christmas Carol, because I'm an educator, a teacher, I read. We are each other's keeper. Humanity is our business. So even today, if you go, you know what, I don't know about this, let me try growing one thing. Just try growing one thing and promise yourself that you'll give half of what you get. If you pick 2, 1 is going to go to someone else. Just make that promise to yourself. And, please look us up. Please, Google, or I don't know if our handles are on there. I'm at NJ Garden Teacher. And I think it's important for everyone to just share that information. And thank you.
Thank you.